It started before dawn, the sky still bruised with night when the first leaflets began to fall. Paper fluttered down into empty streets, into the rubble of shattered homes, into the hands of people who had already lost everything. The message was simple and terrifying: leave now, evacuate or face the consequences. Please like and subscribe for real-life stories. Families woke to the sound of distant explosions and the rustle of paper on concrete. Mothers wrapped children in blankets. Men loaded what they could into battered cars and pickup trucks. Old men who had walked these streets for decades sat on their doorsteps, stunned, clutching the flyer as if it might explain how the world had come to this. No one trusted the sky anymore. No one trusted the sirens. Whispers spread through neighborhoods. They dropped leaflets. They said they would flatten the area. People traded rumors for facts and facts for hope. Where could they go that would be safe? The South was overcrowded. Shelters were full. Roads had been bombed and bridges damaged. For many, fleeing was not a clear choice. It was a deadly gamble. Children pressed into the backs of trucks stared at the flapping paper, at images meant to frighten and to force a choice. An old woman carried a tiny suitcase and a photograph of a son who had been taken 2 years earlier. A father tied his toddler to his chest and whispered promises he could not possibly keep. As columns of people moved, the city changed. Once familiar streets became a procession of loss and fear. Eyewitnesses later described scenes of chaos. Crowded crossings, traffic jams choke with the lives of those running for safety, and people abandoning belongings they could not carry. Some stayed behind, too sick, too old, or too terrified to risk the unknown. Others walked toward what they hoped the leaflets called a safe zone, only to find tents and makeshift shelters that could not hold them all. The sound of planes overhead was a constant drum. Each blast tore through the fragile quiet, and every blast pushed more people to move. Aid groups warned that ordering entire neighborhoods to evacuate without guaranteed safe corridors and functioning shelters could multiply suffering rather than save lives. Medical teams spoke of hospitals overflowing, of patients who could not be moved, of surgeries delayed because electricity had failed. In the dust and smoke, ordinary acts became heroic. Strangers shared water and space. Volunteers formed human chains to help elderly neighbors climb into vehicles. A young volunteer used his shirt to bandage a bleeding foot. People traded places in lines for food and fuel. Even in terror, the community tried to hold itself together. But the leaflets did their work. For many, they were not just warnings, they were ultimatums. Fear of an impending assault, no matter how unbelievable, can force decisions in minutes that would usually take months of planning.
Parents who had never imagined leaving their homes now carried children through night and heat. Teenagers became drivers, cooks, and protectors. The city emptied house by house until entire blocks stood silent, doors open, rooms abandoned with hands frozen mid-gesture. International aid agencies sounded alarms. They said evacuation orders without safe passage, adequate shelter, or guaranteed humanitarian access could amount to forced displacement. They called for pauses, for corridors for civilians and aid, for respect of the laws designed to protect non-combatants. But calls for pauses do little in the moment when a family is deciding whether to run or hide. As the sun set on that first day of leaflets and flight, the landscape looked like a city caught between two worlds, the place it had been and the unknown it was becoming. Fires burned where buildings had been struck. Smoke turned the horizon orange. The road south was a ribbon of headlights moving away from home, toward whatever refuge might await. And yet, amid the fleeing and the fear, people continued to live, to sing quietly at night so children would sleep, to tell stories that kept memories alive, to fold photographs into their pockets like relics of a life they refused to forget. In pockets of the city, neighbors opened doors and shared rooms. In other places, silence swallowed entire streets. This is not a story of sides or politics. It is a story about people caught in an impossible choice. It is about how a single sheet of paper, dropped from above, can unravel the fragile safety of a neighborhood and force thousands into motion. It is about the cost of war measured in footsteps, in empty chairs at dinner tables, in names whispered into the dark. If you see someone fleeing, if you can offer water, medicine, or a place to rest, do it. If you can share verified information about safe routes and aid centers, do that too. And remember, behind every headline is a family making the worst decision of their lives, to stay and risk the strike, or to leave and carry loss with them. If you want updates on where to help or how to donate through reputable organizations, links are in the description. Above all, Remember their faces, not as statistics, but as people, mothers, fathers, children, whose lives are being reshaped by choices no one should have to make.